right, and we're live. How's it going, everybody? Hope you're having a good weekend. So, getting a little bit of a late start today. I guess the schedule is set to start at 10. It's now almost 11. So we'll see how much time I have to stream today, but figure we'll have some time to get a little bit of work done. If you're just tuning in for the first time, we are basically taking this dribble design and just trying to build it using Jetpack Compose. We did this last week for a few hours. We kind of got started, and we were able to get essentially this far. I don't know if you can see that, but we've got a start, I guess, of this design. You know, we got some of these avatars set up and the progress indicator and some like rough layout and stuff sort of working out, but none of the kind of polish, I guess. And if you look at the actual hold on a second here. So let me see. I can pull up see if this works. Okay, that works. So I have the mock-up set up to kind of lay on top of the device screen that I have on the stream. So we'll be able to kind of compare the two pretty easily. I just think that helps a little bit, and it doesn't have to obscure all the code and everything that we're looking at. So this mock-up, we can see here, there's definitely some, font differences and stuff like that we can tweak. But I think one of the more interesting aspects of this design is the orange and purple dots that are kind of showing up on the timeline, and the actual style of the timeline, which we sort of just started working on last time. So I think that it might be most interesting to focus on that first, and maybe a little bit of tweaking here and there. One of the things that someone brought up was to actually once we do another, hey Afsal, thanks. Once we do another screen and we get some more screens in this app kind of set up, it would be nice to pull in the new navigation architecture component that we're working on at Google that's not released yet, but we could pull in a snapshot release maybe and kind of play around with that and look at how that would look in this app. And I think probably the next screen that we'll look at will probably be this one, because I think that this is like an input form, and I think that there's a lot of good things for us to look at in terms of the API for form fields, and in particular, this one's got a date going on, which we don't have a date picker yet, so it'd be interesting to think about what we could do for that. And so I think this one has some really interesting kind of state interactions, and we could maybe fake some of that and all that. So that's kind of what I'm thinking for now. And so the immediate thing we're going to do is let's just work on this timeline, and we'll see if what kind of time that consumes, and maybe go back to something else or a new screen or something if that makes sense. Hey Sky Color. So let's go ahead and kind of get started. first thing we'll want to do is just try and render like one of these dots and try and come up with like a good scheme to do the grouping of the days here. It looks like the line sort of gets rendered like gray when there is no, or like gray is kind of like the default of the line, and then there's like a white line with some dots on top of it that are sort of show up as a grouping of the dates, I think, or like these date time codes, whatever we wanted to call them, because they weren't apparently not real dates here. So let's give that a shot. And just so we can get our bearings here, we had some fake data, or like some mock data up at the top here, and we had our circular progress, the avatar list. Let's see. I think we made a new, timeline cards is in its own file here. Alex Lockwood says, it'd be cool if you did a rundown on accessibility once you finish the app, testing the app with talkback and such. That's a great idea. Yeah, I like that idea a lot. So we can give that a shot. And then the things that, maybe didn't work like out of the box, we could either use that as maybe like an opportunity to change something in the underlying API so that would have happened by default, or we can show how to tweak that yourself. Hey Club Spinach. So we've got this timeline row. This is kind of where a lot of the line stuff is going to happen. So if you remember, we built this custom layout here to deal with some of the, like basically this draws the line here. So we've got a kind of like a table. So there's everything to the left of the line, which goes in here, and everything to the right of the line, which goes here. And then we use this draw line modifier, which we wrote, and so we might add some parameters to that. And then we made a custom layout to deal with this, where we measured the right-hand side first, and then that gave us a height. So the height of the row was solely determined by the right-hand side, and then using that height, we basically forced the left-hand side to be the height of the right-hand side. And this kind of gives you a glimpse of, like, if I were to create a table layout component, this kind of shows you like the path towards doing that. Basically, a table, its layout is determined by the, like essentially the height of the row is exactly the largest height of any row in that column, or potentially the whole table. And if you want to have like, same size rows and stuff. And so it would give you an idea of what sort of logic you would maybe need to put in here to do that. Obviously this is way simpler than a table, but kind of gets you going down that path. Is the title wrong, Carbo? Oh, sorry. I'll fix that after the stream is done, I guess. It must have not gone through like the API or something. Club Spinach says, "Are you the CEO of this product?" No. So this is we're working. Well, okay. It depends what. I mean, first of all, I'm not the CEO of anything, but this project management app isn't really a real app right now. It's just a design that I found on Dribbble that I'm using to essentially try out and use the Jetpack Compose UI toolkit, which is a UI toolkit for Android that I work on at Google. So let me catch up. So Avzal asks, is the API for passing navargs in the composed navigation library going to improve? Passing a bundle seems to have been removed, and now we need to pass something like URL query parameter strings, which seems like a minor step back. I'm not sure. I wasn't aware of that change. I'll have to check that out. I've been doing some of the API review for the navigation, but not all of it. So I wasn't aware of that change, so I'm not sure. And Skycolor asks, is there a way to reset an animated float value back to the initial value? Currently I'm doing snap to 0 and then animate to 360. Otherwise it always starts at 360, even on recompose. I might need more context. So snap to is like essentially equivalent to just setting the value like directly, and then animate to will kind of slowly animate to that value. But I'm not sure what you're asking. Is there? So I don't think that the float. I don't think animated float holds on to what the initial value was. So I think you would have to know yourself what the initial value was. And every odd second, I want to repeat the animation. I see. So one thing you might, yeah, that's interesting, because I think what you're saying is that the when you say you basically say dot snap to 0 and then animate to 360, but you're doing that like basically in the same at the same moment, and it, as far as it's concerned, it's already at 360, so there's no need to do that. Yeah, I suspect this is probably more painful than it should be, but like I think what you could do is you could say dot snap to, and then you could probably do like current snapshot. There might be like a snapshot command that you could do to like commit the snapshot right then, and then you do the animate to 360. But that's not a great answer, I think. So you might just have to set up the state to where you essentially one recomposition happens with the state back at 0, and then it starts up again. I don't know. Yeah, dot reset or something. I mean, it might be like, so if you wanna file like a bug on that, like just as like a feature request and like state your use case, there might be a clean way to do this right now that I'm just not aware of, and someone else would know. But I think that if you like actually have a need for this, and that there's like a real reason that you're wanting to do this and it's difficult, then we should consider that. MZ Polidius says, hey Leland, have you figured out the stable inference memory leak already? If no, then maybe you could do a heap dump of the compiler process and then use Shark to analyze it. Yeah, thanks for that. Actually, I did figure it out. It ended up being one of the reasons that I was having a problem finding it was that I didn't realize that the memory leak was only happening when we were running our tests. And so it was actually just a really silly bug on my part in one of our test fixtures that was causing the leak. And so I did end up fixing that, and right now the CL has all tests passing and everything, and so it's pretty close to getting in. I'm gonna do a little bit of polish on the code and probably add some documentation for some things, and get it code reviewed. But hopefully we'll see that go in later this week. Do you think there's a possibility to have a pause and resume for animated values? Well, you can do this by basically grabbing the animation clock, and if you could build an implementation of the animation clock that is pausable and resumable. And so maybe we should build that if we haven't already. I'm not sure if we have. But then you could just provide the animation clock in the ambient, and then all animations under that you would be able to like pause, like reverse and scrub and all that, which is one of the cool things that you can do with the animation clock. And one of the reasons that we did that was so that you could have really fine-grained and like deterministic control over animations in testing. Okay, so let's see what kind of code can we do here. So just going back to this, we've got this timeline row layout, and right now it's not really configurable. You just pass in left and right content. I think what we're going to want to do is like have some parameters that determine what's drawn on the line, and then kind of pass that into here. In the meantime, let's just try and draw one of these circles, right? So like right now, maybe in the center, so we can get the center position. So this is the center of the dot on the timeline, and this is going to be well, so we have a dry scope, so we have a size. I'm going to make an offset, and we want an X and a Y. So our Y position, well, so let's just do X equals size dot, oh no, our X position is going to be basically 100% of the space. So that'll be width. And then our Y position will be our height divided by 2. And after we draw the line, we can draw a circle. I mean, so another thing that we could do, so at the moment, I was just gonna like do these draw commands, right? Another thing that we could do is we could actually allow for arbitrary composable content to be placed here. I think both are perfectly valid ways to do this. Like allowing for composable to just draw itself there would be pretty nice and flexible, but like it might be overkill if we know that all we're ever going to do is draw these circles. So I'm not sure if that's like worth it right now. Let me see, do these circles have white over them? Yeah, I think they do. Okay, so let's draw a white circle. And these will just have kind of like a fixed radius here. So radius equals, let's just start with 10. Center equals center position. I'm just gonna put all of these and then let's do that. So the alpha is fine. The draw styles fill. Blend mode. Okay, so this is all we really need to set here. So this is going to be our white circle. And then let's draw a smaller one here. Let's say 8. And here we will use, let's just hard code it to a status here, in progress, that color. So that should draw that, like dot on our line here. And let's see that that happens. Okay, so we've got our dot. It's a little bit small. Let's go ahead and make a like just a constant for that, timeline dot size, and we'll call that like 10 dp. And I think we'll do 10 dp dot 2 pixels. Or sorry, we want the timeline dot size. And then here we'll just go ahead and subtract 1 dp from that and make that to pixels. See what that looks like. Okay, that's a little bit big now. So, but I think that the white border is about right. I think 1 dp is probably pretty good. So let's go ahead and make this 8 dp. See what that looks like. And now we want to make this configurable. So I'm gonna go ahead and try it. Like, one of the things that's going on here is that the mock-up here, I think, isn't, you know, fully complete. I think this designer, you know, this was sort of a work in progress. I'm trying to infer what it is that they wanted here. And I think that they're trying to basically group tasks per this like time code thing here, which is probably a day, not sure. And so basically down here on the bottom where it says technical task, well, I guess that does have a dot on it, but there's no line kind of drawn through it. But I think maybe there is supposed to be. And so I'm gonna go ahead and draw this white line. Like, it basically all, we're gonna group by time code. And then there will be a white line that goes through all of the tasks in that group, and then a gray line in between groups. And we'll render a dotted line at like the top, because that makes sense. Like, that's like sort of in the future maybe, and then a solid gray line below that. So we can end up describing this as, let's see, we can make an enum here where we can, you know, it can be line state, and it can be dotted, filled, unfilled. Or the filled and unfilled isn't a good term. It's like, let's just say in group or out, or maybe just in and out, dotted in and out. Nice and simple. So then the dotted means that we're dotted line. Maybe dotted isn't the right term, like undefined. I don't know. So this is a dotted line, this is solid white line, and this is a solid gray line, right? And we can go ahead and put colors here as well. Color. So this is color.white. So we can actually have a color and a line style. I don't think it's like a stroke style or something. Ooh, actually, I wonder, we can actually create a stroke object and just store that. Let me see. So, yeah. What does stroke afford us here? Does it give us a color? It doesn't. Okay. Yeah, I wonder if we should define like a stroke dot solid or something like that. It might be, I mean, it's something to consider. So let's do color and stroke here. So color will be color.gray and stroke. So width. I wonder if 1 will be too small. 1, because I think 1 will just be a single pixel here, and so it might be, I don't know, we'll see. So what else can we fill out with the stroke? We want join, stroke join. This might not be what, let me see. This might not be what we want at all. Like, do I want a path effect here? Is that what is that how I achieve a dotted line? That would seem unfortunate if that's like stroke cap isn't. Yeah, I think I need a path effect, which is a little bit disappointing. I think that dotted lines aren't that uncommon, and I would like for us to have a better answer for that than this. Hi, Kastner Tech. All right. Yeah, so I think that let me write down some of this feedback here as we're working. I think so. What is the feedback here? So one piece of feedback is that it might be nice to have like some common strokes, like stroke dot dotted stroke dot filled, etc. And then the more significant piece here, I think, is that I should be able to define a dotted line without using like native anything, I think. Define a dotted line without using native path effect. Can we standardize on something here? Okay. So I want to find out what I've never used this native path effect before. I mean, this is just the Android graphics path effect. Vidyesh asks, is there abo bexd to Android native plugin like Flutter for Compose? Vidyesh, I'm sorry, I'm not sure what the abo bexd thing is. Can you clarify? Path fill type. Adobe. Oh, weird. What did I read that as? That's funny. My brain like saw bees, I think. It's a program from Adobe. Is there Adobe XD to Android native plugin? So what do you? Sorry, I'm not very familiar with it. Like, what would you use it for? Okay. Similar to Figma, you draw in UI in it, then you click convert to Flutter, and it makes the UI code. I see. Yeah, so we don't have anything like this right now. I mean, definitely not that Google's working on. There's I know that, like, for instance, Bernardo Ferrari is working on something kind of like this that I believe works with Figma, and it works with all kinds of toolkits like Swift UI and Flutter and stuff like that. And I know that Jetpack Compose is one of the ones that he's supporting. So you might want to look into that if that's like if that's something that you're looking for. But there's not like any sort of official thing like that, if that's what you're asking. Okay, so what I want to see is path effect, native path effect, dot also interesting. So do I just grab static things off of this? What does it want me to do? So I think I'm gonna kind of go over. I want to understand. So let's go to cs.android.com. So, I mean, I think that native path effect is what I'm gonna need to use to get a dotted line, but I'm not sure. Or can I use a shader? If anyone knows, by the way, the right way to do a dotted path here, showing my relative inexperience with some of these APIs. I guess outline maybe. No, because that's for a shape. So draw style might be what they want me to use here. Let me see. Draw style. No, because draw style is just a stroke or fill. Yeah, thanks, generic username. Yeah, I haven't seen much of it either. Sky Color says just make a small, or just do box composables in a column. Could certainly do that. Wouldn't be the most efficient thing. I'm kind of surprised. Let me just see what the like the Android Canvas APIs are. Android Canvas draw dotted line. Just search for that, or dashed line. Okay, so there's a dash path effect. So it is path effect that we want. Dash paint. Yeah. All right. Let's go ahead and try this. So we can create a dash path effect. No. Let's say float array of. All right. 5 is 0. So I don't think that we actually want this, 5, 10, 15, 20. I think we can let's see what the mockup looks like. The dash is thick and the spacing is somewhat small. So I'm gonna try something like 10 and 2. That's probably too much. Let's try 10 and 4 and see what that looks like. So then the draw style here for undefined would be color.gray, and then path effect equals dash path effect stroke. And then I think we also want to specify the width here. It looks like maybe the white line has a a thicker line than the dashed one. So width equals, let's just say, let's do one line, one for that. And so I wonder if we should have like a, well, it doesn't matter. Okay. So color gray here. And the width here, let's go ahead and give this like a 2. Yes. And then that's all we need to specify because everything else will be the default. Color dot gray. And stroke is, let's go back to 1F here. 1F. Okay. Yeah, Abir, the code is on GitHub. I can, SkyColor just linked it to you, but since you're on YouTube, you probably won't be able to get it easily. So let me just pull up the link. There it is. And one thing I do want to play around with in the future is the basically providing you a link that will give you like live access to the code that I have in like a browser window. We talked about that on a previous stream. I think it could be a pretty cool thing, but I haven't had time to mess around with that yet. So sorry about that. Oh, sorry, I missed a question here. Adriano says, as I understood, remember is for caching values to prevent recomputing each time. Is there a way to use remember inside a draw scope for calculations based on the size? Adriano, that's a great question. And we actually have an API that is kind of for this. So we have a draw with cache API. And so what this lets you do is this lets you do something here. Like you can say, you know, saved, like, you know, what would you want to make here? Like you might want to make a, you know, path. And then you can compute path here from size, like the size of the thing. And so then you keep that path, and then you say on draw, and then here I can draw the path. And so you don't need to use remember here, but basically the contract is that this part of the lambda is only ever going to get called when the size changes, and then this will get called kind of every time after that. So that's sort of the API we came up for exactly that use case, since it's pretty common. So okay, what I want to do, so we're gonna draw let's say we've got both a top and a bottom line state. Line state, bottom line state. And we're gonna draw them independently. So we'll do so top.color, and then this goes from the top right to the center position. We'll say position, and this asks for the stroke width, but I wonder if we can pass it a stroke. Let's see, is there a draw line? Does one of these have a stroke? I guess it doesn't. You know, maybe it should. I guess I'm maybe using the APIs at the wrong layer here, but I'm gonna add that as another piece of feedback. Should there be a draw line overload that takes a stroke? So basically here, what do we have? We've got all the kind of like individual things. So I think I might need to do draw path here. Is there... So with... yeah, it's interesting because I'm not seeing the APIs to give me a path effect here. So if top path equals do we have a path builder? I don't remember. So I'm wondering if the path APIs are going to give me the ability to use path effects. So let's see. I can, like for instance, if I add an arc, it doesn't give me that. So there's a path fill type. Let's see, effects. Yeah, this is I feel like there's some missing pieces here. So Mohammed says, I don't know if you talked about that already or not, but when you put the line in row with fill max height and it didn't take the full height, you could use preferred height intrinsic size.min on the row. So I haven't talked about that. I do remember you mentioning that to me. I'm not sure. So let's see. Let's we'll put the line in row with fill max height. So basically, you're saying that there's a way for me to accomplish this timeline row without a custom layout. Is that what you're saying, Mohammed? So and so if if I had the left content and the right content just in a row, yeah, path effect is on the paint. I'm trying to see if there's a way for me to do this without a paint, because we're trying to make it so that, you know, paint isn't needed except for sort of esoteric things, and I wouldn't consider this an esoteric thing. So so draw scope. I see. So there is a draw line that takes a draw line. Why am I not seeing this? Ah, here it is. Okay. Good. path effect equals top dot path effect stroke dot path effect. Color. And what do I need to fill out here? So start and end. Start equals top right. End equals center position. And then we'll give it a width here. Stroke width equals top dot stroke dot width. Okay. Okay, good. So I'm glad that that API was there, because for some reason I didn't see that at first, but looks like it is there. So so I'm gonna draw that, and then draw the bottom, bottom, and then this will be center position, and then bottom right. So Mohammed, I'll have to, I think I'm trying to understand where it is that you're saying the I could use preferred height here. Let me, I'll try that off stream, or if you wanted to like send me like a quick gist or something of what you're suggesting, then that would be great. But it's a little bit hard for me to tell exactly where I would use the preferred height, and if you're wanting me to remove all this or not. But well, I guess it does sound like you want me to remove all this, but I don't want to spend you know, a bunch of time on stream going down that path. But it does sound, you know, if I can do this without creating a custom layout, that sounds nice. I'm not sure what the downsides would be, if any. So let me know. Thanks. So here, hey Walia Himanshu. It's a cool name. How's it going? Not sure if I pronounced that right. Hopefully I did. Okay, so now we draw our top and our bottom line, and then the two circles. And we also want a, let's see, we want a circle, or let's give her status. Because we're using like the project status here to determine the circle. So it's always going to have white, and then I think we'll just say the status.color here instead. And that should give us some, you know, a nice way to create this line. And we'll probably want to pass exactly these parameters in from here. So let's say status, top and bottom. Those could maybe get better names. So let's see, top line state, bottom line state. Cool. And when we use this, we probably, like right now we're just passing in the task, and so we can pass in the status here, but getting the line states, state dot in, bottom line state dot out. this is going to be a little bit trickier. We're probably going to need to pass this in because this is dependent on the, you know, the previous item or the previous task and the next task. So, you know, but that logic isn't all that hard to write. So let's just try and go write it real quick. Hey, Nicholas, how's it going? Mohammed, I see that you just passed me that just, I'll click on it once I finish this kind of line of thinking here. But thank you for that. Okay, so we've got our timeline screen here. And here we just go through each timeline task. And actually, so our timeline header, we'll know this. So top line state, line state dot undefined, and bottom line state dot undefined. And here actually we want to, I think that maybe status needs to be nullable here for no dot. Yeah, because the header isn't going to get a dot. So we'll change this to nullable. And then here we'll say if status isn't null, then draw the circles. Okay. So timeline header looks good. And now what we're going to need to do is deal with the logic to pass in the top and the bottom line states here. So we'll take a task and top line state and bottom line state. So Walia Himanshu says, I'm using Alpha 5 and I think API change gyroscope top right. Yeah, right. There's no top right or bottom right methods anymore. Yeah, I'm using Alpha 5 now too. And so I ended up changing these. I haven't pushed that to GitHub yet, but now I'm using size.toRect. And this is actually, I mean, this is kind of silly. You know, mostly because I'm now allocating a rect for this and I don't really have to. It would be easy enough for me to just say top right would be x would be size.width and y would be 0. And then here offset would be size.width and size.height. That's the better way to do it. We removed top right and bottom right from drawscope. And actually I was actually part of that API decision, but it's ironic that now that I kind of need those, it's like I'm now seeing why they might be useful in a drawscope. So I think that I was part of the API decision to remove them off of size, but I think it would make sense for drawscope to have like top right, bottom right, stuff like that. So actually I'm gonna go ahead and write that down as well. Drawscope should or could have some helpful offset getters like bottom right, etc. because it has size, and you can get, everything can be determined from that. But in drawscope, it seems natural to want to refer to things like top right and bottom right, like we're doing here for this type of reason. And you know, like you could even imagine like a you know, a center right or something like that. Like if these things were defined, that would be like, this logic isn't that hard to write, but it's pretty self-explanatory if they were just properties that existed on drawscope to do that, and it wouldn't cost us anything. So there's maybe a good argument to have those. Okay, what did I want to do? I wanted to go here. So I think what I want to do, so instead of just a, like I can do indices here, index, and then I can say task equals project.task dot get the index, and then I could say previous is get or null index -1. I'm assuming that this will, yeah, okay, so this will help me avoid the out of bounds exceptions here. So next is project tasks get or null index +1. So that's easy enough. And task equals task. And then here, I've got our top line state. So this is dependent on the previous task, and we can say if let's say task dot timecode equals previous dot timecode so if they're the same, then the line state is line state dot in. Otherwise, so this is actually all right. Let's set up a win expression for this. Win. So if previous is null, that means that we're on like the first item, right? And so in that case, we're gonna do line state dot undefined. And if the time codes are equal, then we're gonna do line state dot in. And otherwise, we're gonna do line state out. And we're gonna have a similar thing here for bottom line state. And then this will be next here. So if next is null, that means we're at the end, which we don't really know what the designer wants us to do at the end, but I'll go ahead and keep that as undefined. So then there's like a dotted line at the end. That seems reasonable. And so if the next time code is the same, then we're in, otherwise out. That seems straightforward enough. I kind of, you know, I feel like this logic always gets kind of annoying and hairy, but you know, I feel like this is relatively well made. Like it's relatively concise and like legible, understandable. Like I'm happy with it. So, hey Tutor, how's it going? let's see. Kirill asks, can we use Jetpack Compose in Android Studio 4.1? The answer to that is no, unfortunately. Basically so technically you can, but you can't use the support for the Android Studio like Compose previews. And I don't think that the AGP, the support for Compose built into AGP, I don't think that would work either in Studio 4.1. But like you can, so if you don't need the preview and all you really need is to like set up the Compose compiler plugin and stuff like that, like you can still do that in any version of Android Studio that you want. It's just a little bit more work. Okay, so I think we're in a pretty good spot right now. Let's try and run this. Top quality entertainment. Me writing code. Love it. Okay, so we are back here. Oh, actually, you're seeing the wrong thing, so let me turn that off. Okay. So that looks pretty good. We kind of have this working. There aren't any... it doesn't look like there are like any groups of tasks that extend, like, or it's like more than just two, which, maybe we'd want to mess with our mock data to have that. And it looks like the white is like pretty hard to see. So I'm going to make the white a bit fatter. Let's see. We'll go up here. So the gray is kind of enough. We kind of want that to be subdued here, but like let's do like a stroke width of 4 for that. And then I think the dashes are kind of hard to see. So let's tweak our dash effect as well. And let's see. I think that this could be, let's say this is 20, and let's make this 10, so it'll be like half. We'll see how that goes. Kirill asks, so where should we use Jetpack Compose? Not sure like exactly what context you're asking this in. You can use Jetpack Compose to build Android apps. If you're asking like, can we use it for like, production apps and stuff like that? I talked about that in a previous episode, but it's kind of hard to answer. It really depends on your risk profile and like what kind of like stakeholders in your app, if that's you or if you work for like a big company, like who that is, and how they feel about it. But in general, it's still pretty alpha, right? So there's a number of APIs that are going to change. So you need to be able to you need to be willing to deal with some of those changes. And then also there are some subsystems that are just going to be a little bit raw still. Some of the accessibility stuff, like we aren't yet hitting like GAR3 accessibility requirements. We're working on that. And there's just some stuff like that you have to ask yourself, like what is a requirement for you. So I still feel like that white is pretty thin. I like the dash now. The dash looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and make this just like 8 or something. Nice and beefy. Oh, sorry, Kirill, you were meaning where can we use it? It doesn't work in 4.1. Yeah, right now, so the Canary channel for Android Studio is the best place to use Compose. So the Android Studio Canary channel supports Compose. You can go like just Google 4.2 Canary and hi Tolipachito. Hola, how's it going? Miriam asks, isn't it supposed to say date instead of data on top of the timeline? Probably. The the mockup actually says data, but I think that's probably a typo. I'm not sure. There are a few kind of things in this mockup that like aren't probably completely correct. So, all right. I feel like this timeline thing, we're in like a pretty good place here. I think that maybe the white around the circle should be a little bit more pronounced. So maybe we'll go here and instead of subtracting 1 dp, we'll subtract 2 dp. Give that a shot. And then the like card thing on this timeline, and just a lot of the typography in general isn't like very well customized at the moment. But I'm wondering if I should just move to a new page instead of tweaking some of that. Like I think tweaking stuff to be perfect to the design is like always a good thing to do. One of the things I don't like is that I like having actual numbers from the designer for what these like font sizes and pixel values and all these things are, versus just trying to guess from the mockup. And so I'm probably gonna skip that just because it'll just be a bunch of like guesswork for me, and I don't think that's great. Yeah. What do we've got a few comments here. So yeah, Alan says, what is the name of the font that he's using? It's Dank Mono. Dank.sh is the where you can find it. Talipachito asks if I have a backend. So there is no backend for this app yet. I would love if I had one. I think it makes like a lot of the coding a lot more interesting, but I don't have one right now. Tudor says, I missed the last app stream. The project looks so much better and polished. I love the productivity Compose offers. Cool. Yeah, glad to hear that. Yeah, move to the first page. I'm not sure what that means. One question, Walia has a question. For the timeline task card, what was your rationale to use nested column, row column instead of using constraint layout? It's a good question. So where is that here? That's basically like he's asking like why use this like column and row stuff instead of constraint layout. It's just it's a personal choice. I think you can like both would be perfectly fine in this context, and it might even just depend on like how the designer kind of gave you some of the specification. And we can try using constraint layout in like maybe one of the future screens for this app if people want to see that. Just personally, I'm used to thinking in terms of like rows and columns. It's just like my background and everything. That's just like what I'm used to thinking in. But both are perfectly fine here. And this would be, I think, a reasonable place to use constraint layout for that. So again, just personal choice. And then Dot asked, did you stop the cinema app? Yeah, the code's on GitHub. I kind of, there was a ton more polish to do on that, but I felt like working on it wasn't the most entertaining thing, and so I thought moving on to a different example was good. But let me know if you disagree with that, and if you think that it would be nice to continue on that app. So I don't know. It felt like time, but I was pretty happy with like just some of the learnings that came from that example and stuff like that. So okay, I think let's start doing like page 2, right? We've got, so this is what we've got so far, which looks all right, and then here's the mock-up of that. I think we should start looking at maybe this. Let me see, let me put it in there. This is like the third page. It's like a pretty different page, but I love that it's got a bunch of form elements and stuff like that, and so we can start diving into some of the interesting bits that come with that. And we'll be able to reuse some things like the avatar list and all that, but I think that this will be a fun page to do. So let's start working on that. Yeah, so Dot says, I'd love to watch you work on it again. The design looks awesome. Yeah, it was a cool design. There's actually, so, there might be some new animation APIs that come out at some point where I think it would be interesting to go back and play around with it a little bit more and see if there's like a different way to write it. And then Miriam says, I'd like to see more tutorials focused on linking compose with a structured backend in your channel. Yeah, totally agree. I think, one of the things, that's honestly, that's kind of the code that I enjoy writing more than anything. But like, so free APIs, GitHub. Like one of the last things we did with the movie app, which I'm not sure if you saw this, Miriam, or not, but basically the last episode of the movie app, I think, we worked on tying it in with the movie database API. So that might be of interest to you, but I think one of the things that would be cool, and I'd love to get some feedback from some people watching, like if you have like an idea for something that I could build, or like a backend that I could build it on top of and stuff like that, let me know. Like I'm just kind of flying in the dark here and just picking projects randomly. But I'm curious if some of these APIs are like not read-only. Like if there's some APIs that allow you to do, like actually posting some, some requests to get like data that you can modify and mutate and stuff like that. I think that's when a lot of the more interesting code comes in. And if we could come up with like a design that we could put in front of one of these APIs, or if you have some idea like that, I think that would be really cool. So anyway, food for thought. But I would definitely love to write some more code around state management here in the here on the stream. Okay, so what do we want to call this page? We've got, I guess it's a create a new task screen. Viga says, hi, Lily, the movie project uses old version of Compose compiler. Will it be possible to update to Alpha 5 at least? Thanks. Yeah, I can do that. It probably shouldn't be very hard to update it. I'll try and spend a minute to do that later. JB Pratt says, I enjoy the dogfooding streams. I'm sure it is leading to a lot of new insights for the core team actively working with the libraries. For designs, do you just grab something off Dribble and run with it? Yeah, basically. That's what I've been doing so far. But you know, like I said, if anyone watching, you know, has a design that they want to share with me, and like, you know, we could work on that. One of the things that would be really nice is if I could get like a fully spec'd out design, something with, you know, real like specification for typography and colors and spacing and stuff like that. That's what I really enjoy, working from something very precise like that as an engineer versus kind of guessing from designs, you know, on Dribble that I'm just looking at some PNG or something. So if anyone has something like that, definitely let me know. All right, let's make a new file here. Let's call this create task screen. All right. We can go ahead and just call it that. And I'm just gonna go like update the main entry point to just use this instead. And then we'll be working on that. So this is nice here. We've got this this dark color, which I'm just gonna save in a background here. Top level variable. Oops. All right. So this is our kind of main background here. Let's make this let's make a scrollable column, and we'll say modifier background bg color. And you know, I suppose there's a question of whether or not we want to like basically this design, you can tell it was kind of designed for an iOS device just based on the navigation conventions here. You know, we could choose to kind of change the style to feel a little more Android-y, or we can just ignore the navigational element for the time being, and when we come back in with the navigation architecture component, we can, which we'll do on a later stream, maybe we can add the title and stuff like that in here ourselves. You know, or we could, like, if we wanted to try and do the iOS design like on Android or something, you know, let me know if any of you would want to see that or would prefer to see that, because it's all still very possible. It's just like, you know, I think if you're building an Android app, then navigation is something that you probably want to leave to the platform conventions. So I think it would be a poor choice for a design, but I think for now I'm just gonna ignore it and just work on everything below that point. So Skycolor says you have that on Behance.net. It's better than Dribble regarding that. They define colors, typography, and state flows normally. Okay. Yeah, I used to look at Behance a lot, but I haven't in a long time. So maybe that's a better place to find these things. Thanks for that advice. You know, this is maybe even on Behance. We should check it out. Let's see. This is that designer, Leonid Arestov. So I wonder if there's like a project management app design somewhere on here. I don't see it. This doesn't look like. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't see this particular design on there for him. And since we already started, we'll keep going with this. But I think that it's a good idea for next time. Is I'll try and look for a a design that gives us more details. So yeah, this does. I see what you're saying. They give some more of that. Curious if they give spacings and all that. Like this is like a landing page. It's like quite a big one, I guess. Well, yeah, I don't know. They give a few things. One pager. Yeah, I don't know if one of you can find like a very highly specified mobile design that you think is pretty cool. Let me know, because that would be really nice to be able to work from something like that. I'm Matabulahada. Anyway, I'm at asks, what are you doing? Right now we're working on this, basically this mock-up here that I have shown. We're going to try and build that in Jetpack Compose. We just started this screen. We worked on some other screens. Okay. Crossfire says, I will start my new project. Should I start with Jetpack Compose? Does Jetpack Compose support all Android UI elements? I mean, can I do everything that I can do with XML with Compose? So basically Crossfire, like what I would recommend is if you're starting a new project and you want to like play around with Compose, then I think that, you know, if the risk profile of your project like makes sense and everything, you should do that. But like one thing you might want to keep in mind is that like you can very easily create like a hybrid app, and so there are parts of your app that can be done with just sort of normal classic Android views and XML and stuff like that, and then you can build other screens with Compose, and you can have both kind of intermixed. And you know, maybe you would do that to where if you ran into something that Compose didn't fully handle for you or something, then you could, you know, kind of easily revert back to that. That would maybe be my my recommendation. So let me see. Is this? I just saw a link. Okay, that's neat. It's a different design I see, but it's a cool design. Anyway, I'll check that out. But yeah, keep looking. That'd be great. Biology as well says the all UI design of the app is made using Kotlin. Yeah, we're using Jetpack Compose in Kotlin here. Okay. So let's go through and just create some of these UI elements that we're going to be dealing with. We've got our background color. So I wonder, so this is a text field that actually looks pretty close to the material text field. So I'm gonna use the material text field for this. So, or I think it's the filled text field that we would want. Did we just call it text field now? I'm confused. I see there's a documentation error. Okay, so this is the material text field now. I think this is probably what we want. So just to start, I'm gonna create a few state variables for this. Let's say we'll have project name, state of, and I'm going to give it an initial value just because that's what's in the mockup, and we'll remove them later, but it'll just be easier to kind of compare apples to apples starting off. And let's create a client. So we've got client here. And I'm gonna AWSMD team. That looks like the designer just like, you know, just like typed on his keyboard like that or something, I don't know. Okay, so let's just go ahead and do some of these. So we'll have, you know, client and on client change here, and then project name. Project name equals it. I gotta pull in the get value and set value. Super annoying. All right, so we've got that set up. And then we're gonna have to build some sort of like a select text box here. And then here, I'm gonna go ahead and make like a few I'm gonna make a few like kind of reusable composables here just to you know, kind of reuse some of the styling. So I'm gonna just call this like PM text field, which this is gonna have a value string, on value change, string to unit, and I'll give it a label as well. And this is going to just use the material text field at the moment. And we'll style that kind of, we'll customize it a bit on our own later. And let's see, we'll set up the label to be this label. We want here. Yep. Okay. So let's then update this to be the PM text field. And let's then also make a drop-down field or something. Drop-down fields. And what I'm gonna do here, so this is for the top, that top bar, where you can see it's like where they select the client, but they probably have a defined list of clients or something. So we're gonna not let them type in there. They're just gonna select it from a list. And so the API we'll want to use for that. Let's say we have the full list kind of on like in memory already. So let's say there's a values, which will be, here's what we'll do. We'll give a T here. And so T will be like the type of, the type that identifies the thing. And so the values will be like a list of T. And we'll have a selected value. I'm wondering if that should be a T. I'm not sure. Maybe. And then let's say we'll allow for a property that lets you map a T to an like an element. So what I want to do is compose item, and that's going to be a composable, which will take a T and return unit here. And then what we need is an on value change. T unit. And that's maybe a good API to start with. One of the things I'm noticing is that, like, so if you look at the mockup for project name and like what looks like a date range, even though the label says project names, the label's on the top left. And then for the client, the label's on the top left, but not the top left of the actual like text field. It's like, the icon of the client is like below it. And so we're likely not going to be able to reuse PM text field in any way, which is like probably fine, for this case. We might just make this a fairly bespoke component here. And I mean, we could even, instead of making it reusable with like a type T, we could even just make it like a client dropdown, and then handle the rendering of the client logo and stuff like that. These are, all these choices have trade-offs. It just depends. Like for this mockup, I think it would definitely be easier to just make a client dropdown field. If I was building like an app with like 100 screens or something, I might decide to spend some effort making like a nice reusable dropdown to use in multiple places that might be rendered slightly different. But I'm not sure if that's like worthwhile here. I'm gonna keep this like skeleton set up here in case we decide to use it. But for now, I'm just gonna say let's just make a client dropdown field, and let's also make a client class like for this mockup. Since we're doing that, we'll have a name for the client, which will be a string, and we'll have a logo, which we'll make it a URL just for sake of ease. And let's give them an ID as well, just so that we can kind of deal with that way. So let's say we have clients. Let's mock clients, and we'll go ahead and make a few of these. So the first one should have an ID of 0 and a name of AWSMD team, sure. And the logo, I'm not sure what we'll use here, but let's just fill it in for the moment. And let's make a few more. You know, so ID is 1, name. You know, let's just go with a few big companies here. Logo, we'll fill that out later. And you know, let's just go with some of my previous employers here. So we've got 3, and we'll select these. That's a good idea, Manuel. Manuel says I should update my code style or indent settings from 8 to 4. I like that idea. I actually like, I normally do like indent of 2, but you know, Roman Guy will hate me if I do that, but I don't know where I specify this. Preferences. Let me just open. I assume this is in like the Kotlin code style or something. Code style, Kotlin. Tab size. So tab size for continuation indents 8. I'm gonna update this to 2, 2, and 4. Sorry, Roman. And then what do I do to format the whole page here? Shift L. Reformat file, Option Shift Command L. Oh my gosh. Let me see. This is like every possible modifier all at once. Didn't even work. I don't even know. All right, I'm just gonna select the option here. Whole file. Sure. All right. Control. Yeah, I don't know. It. Let's see. A few questions here. Crossfire says, actually, I want to use Compose because this the facilities that it facilitates fast development, and I have developed with React Native for 1 year, and Compose is like React syntax, and I love React syntax. Yeah, I think that's a great reason to use it. Like, I think if you're already used to the, you know, declarative component-based programming paradigm, then, you know, I think Compose be really easy to learn and step into. And so yeah, I think that's a great reason to use it. So Chill Code Lift says, how does the remember delegate work? Good question. So I have like there's a section in my thinking and compose talk that kind of goes through this, but basically, so remember, like if I have remember foo, right, where foo's, you know, an object, so this returns me a foo. So object equals, this gives me a foo instance, right? And so then I can say, you know, that value is equals 0, right? So I can say foo.value here if I want. What remember mutable state of returns is a mutable state object. And so I can say remember mutable state of foo, and that'll give me a mutable state of foo. Right, and so let me rename this to foo here. So I can say, let's call it x. So I can say foo.x, and that's there. And so here I can say statefoo.value.x, and that's like the same thing. Now, mutable state defines some operators. So there's a getValue operator on state of t, which all it does is it returns the value of the state. And then likewise, there is a set value operator on mutable state, because you can only set mutable states. And all that does is that lets you assign the value of the mutable state. And so it turns out if you define these operators on an object, then what happens is it'll convert, if I do like, so let's say print statefoo.value, that'll print the foo here. And if I say statefoo.value equals a new foo, then that'll assign the value. And you can think of mutable state as it's just like it's the concept of like this value, like a state object, like there's not anything about it other than like this is a value holder. And if you think about it, that's kind of what a variable is. And so what you can do with a local variable, like I can read statefoo and I can assign statefoo. Well, I can't because it's val, but so it's val, so I can only really read it. I can get the value of it. And if it was var, then I could also assign statefoo to something new, right? I could say statefoo equals, some other mutable state of something else, right? And so those are kind of like the two things that you can do with a variable. If it's val, you can read it, and if it's var, you can read it and assign it. And because of those operators that we've defined, what this means is that when you put this by keyword here, what it's saying is that like treat the statefoo variable as if it is as if any read of that variable is a call to the getValue operator, and any assignment to that variable is a call to the setValue operator. And so now if I do this, so this is reading statefoo, right? Because I'm using the variable here, and so I'm getting the value of statefoo, and that's calling statefoo.getValue. And so that's equivalent. So like let's just say we have non-delegated, which does this, and delegated. And so getting delegated here, this is the same as getting non-delegated.value. Those are like equivalent lines. And then if delegated is a var, then I can say delegated equals new foo, right? And that's the same as delegated non-delegated dot value equals new foo. So these are now equivalent as well. And that's what that's doing. And I really like it because I want to think of like mutable state sort of as like a local mutable variable, and that's it. Like that, and then the way I write the code that like kind of ensues from that is just very natural feeling to me. And the other thing that's nice about it is that if I end up reading delegated like all the way down here, like I pass this in to some text or something, then the read of that mutable state only happens down in this scope. and that actually there are some performance benefits that Compose can do in those cases. And so I just sort of default to using the property delegates kind of whenever possible. And I think it's quite a nice language feature of Kotlin. Anyway, so I hope that describes kind of some of what's going on, there. Manuel says you should update your code style. Okay, yeah, so I did that. Do all mutable state get the same observer if they're in the same scope, or do they get separate observers and get batched called like the old invalidate? So if I read a client here, by reading it, I'm subscribing the create task screen scope to its mutations, and same with project name. And if for instance, so I'm not sure if this is what you're asking or not, but if I mutate it like I'm doing here, that's going to cause a recomposition of create task screen. And I can mutate like two things if I want, you know, some new project name, and that won't create two recompositions if that's what you're asking. It'll batch those changes together in a single recomposition. Let me know if that's what you were asking. And then let's see. Sashjak says, how would you integrate Kotlin Flow or RX with Compose? Is it as simple as passing observable to composable function and subscribe? What will happen with subscription when component is recreated? Yeah, that's a good question. So if I end up having a flow passed in here, you know, this could be a flow of, I guess, do I have flow imported here? Is there another flow? Okay, yeah, calling coroutines flow. So let's say I have like a flow of string. What I can do here is I can call my flow dot collect as state. And if you look at this function, so this is a composable function. So calling it, you can only call it from within a composable function, but what it'll do is it'll collect the values of that flow into a state object, and you're essentially mapping the flow onto a state object. And it'll sort of properly handle all of the life cycles correctly. So you don't have to worry about like cleaning this up or anything like that. Like composable kind of implies a coroutine scope that like flow can use to automatically clean itself up properly. And so in this case, you need to provide it an initial value. And so then here you can say, like, let's say this is like a flow of names, right? I can say name equals, or I would want to say val name by names flow.collect as state, and then, you know, maybe the initial name is Bob. And so now what I have here, like the type of name is string. So I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, you can. So name now is a string, and whenever that flow updates, it'll cause this composable to recompose. And what's really nice is that if I have a state flow, which I'll import that, then I don't need to pass an initial value. And because state flows, you can get the current value always. And so what this will do is this will give me the you know, the current name of that state flow, and it'll recompose whenever that state flow changes. And so again, we're using these delegates. You don't need to. You could do this, and then you could use, you know, name.value. It doesn't matter. I think the delegates make it nice and clean and still understandable. But this is kind of how we deal with integration with Flow, and I think it works quite well. Okay, so HMI High says that exactly what I was curious about, if we should create a wrapper for multiple values, or is it okay to use multiple mutable states since there will not be a lot of overhead for it? Yeah, I think it's fine to use multiple states. I mean, there is technically speaking, I mean, there is some overhead for it, but you won't cause extra recompositions, I guess, if that's what you're worried about. And you know, the way I like to think about it is if there are like values that I always change at the same time, like, so if I update like, let's say I have 2 mutable states for like an X and a Y position, and every time I update the X position, I also update the Y position, just because, you know, they're always changing. Then maybe I should have a single state of like a point or something instead. But if they're independent and they're often changing independently, then I think having individual state objects for them is also fine, and maybe even preferred, right? But it, you know, I think a lot of it depends on the context. But hope that answers some of your questions. These are great questions. You know, I like it when people ask these things, and like we don't always have to be just like coding, you know, this app. I want this stream to be used to, you know, to answer people's kind of questions that they're confused about with Compose and stuff like that. I think that's really, really great. So now we're back to this client dropdown field, and so now instead of a T, I'm just gonna like we'll just use a client here as the T, and we can go ahead and have a label here, the string, and so that's compose item. You know, which maybe now we don't need to compose we don't need this as a parameter, because, you know, we always know that it's going to be a client, and maybe we know how to render the client and stuff like that. So maybe this isn't needed. I'm not sure yet. We'll see how the code kind of shakes out. So maybe we'll do this. Let's say client equals mock clients. So like we'll pass the clients in here, and we're gonna change the type of client to, instead of being a string, we'll change it to be clients dot first, which will be the AWS MD team. And so the client dropdown field, so this will be the selected value, and values will be clients, and on value change will be that. So that seems reasonable. And then here we'll give it a label, which we'll say is client. Maybe we'll do it in all caps. And then, so we've got the project name here. Now, what I might want to do is create a a date range picker, you know, sort of thing. Okay, so I think for this date picker, like we might have one component that's just a date picker, and then we might have like a date range picker that uses both of those and, you know, kind of puts them in a row. Not really sure what we'll want, but let's just imagine like a date picker for starters. Date picker, and I think I'm not sure what the ideal way to store this is. Like, I mean, we could store it as like an ISO 8601 string, or we could use like a Java date time object or something. I'm not sure. I'm thinking just for simplicity, I'll keep it as string. And actually, let's call it value on value change string. Although, you know, one of the things is that like we wouldn't want the value to be passed in as like an invalid date or something. So that, yeah, there's the API for a date picker can get very, very complicated. And I'm not sure I want to build on stream like a fully functional date picker. We'll see how that goes. Let's just keep it as this for the moment. Yeah. And we'll see what that seems like. So I'm gonna just delegate this to the date picker right now, and we'll remove the label. And there's gonna be a lot that we need to edit here, but let's just, you know, kind of build this like row of date pickers in line. And date picker. So let's just create like a start date. And we'll deal with that. Start date. So we've got these two date pickers in a row. One's a start date, one's an end date. And then we'll need to make like a, you know, label here, but we can, the mockup just says project name here, which I'm assuming is incorrect. But let's just say, I don't know, what is, so this is a project, or no, it's a new task. It's kind of weird for a task to have a date range. Not really sure. Dates, I don't know. Start and end date. Sure, why not? Okay, and then below the date range, we will have a an avatar list. So I'm not sure what size these are. Let's just say 40 dp. So let's just use our mock project here and just say it's mock project.users, and we'll give an empty click handler there. And then I guess we also want to show the add button. And on add click, we'll add an empty one there as well. Okay, I'm thinking that maybe we want like this. We want to create like a field label component. Label string, and we'll use this like, you know, several times for this, for like the label that goes above these fields, since some of them we're like not using the text field label. So let's just start with that, you know, it's fine. And so I'm gonna change that to field label, and then let's use this. We'll say assignee. Okay, and then we're also gonna have category, which I'm gonna create another it's sort of like this toggleable like chip type thing. Toggleable chip. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. But so we'll say selected value. So selected will be a Boolean, and we'll have an onSelected change, which will be Boolean unit, and let's see. We'll want to have like a name here, or let's just call it text. Then we'll deal with that. You know, so one of the interesting things is like I think that this is meant to be like sort of a radio button, in that you know, if I click front end, then design should get unclicked. And so we actually, there's some interesting like semantics that we have around doing that properly for accessibility and stuff. And so that'll be interesting. We'll try and play around with that. I think maybe in light of that, I think maybe the right API for this instead is to have a let's say I don't know, I'm not good at the name here, but let's just say radio chips, and then we'll say values is a list of string, and we'll have a selected value, which will be a string here, and then this will be on selected change string unit, and maybe that's the right way to do this here. So that'll be neat. So we'll say this is in a row, and for value and values, and then let's, well, I don't know if we want to make it a standalone includer or not, but we can say selected equals value equals selected value. And then here we can render I want to try out icon button, and so if this gets checked, So if it's already selected, then I don't really think we need to do anything, but we'll just for like simplicity, we'll just, you know, do it anyway. Like that's not going to do anything. It should just basically have them assign the selected value to the same thing. But we can do this for each one. And what else does this give us? So this gives us the interaction state, icon. Okay. Yeah, I'm not really sure if this is what we want here, but we'll see. Yeah, icon button, and you know, we'll probably create some modifiers here. Not sure what all that we'll need, but you know, at the very least, let's give, you know, a different background. If selected, color.green, else color.white, which will probably already be white. Not sure. Indication. Yeah, okay. This is pretty bare bones, which is fine. And then just gonna have it always be enabled. So I think that's all we need to render there. And then icon. And let's see. So if it's selected, then we're gonna render this icon. Icons dot checkmark. Let's see. I think just default is fine here. Check, I think that's good enough. So we'll import that, and then kind of regardless, we're gonna render the text with the value, and we'll probably. So I think probably the better way to do this is let's see, selected color.white, else. I'm gonna go back in and kind of tweak some of the colors here, but modifier. This should give us like a real bare bones kind of working version of this, but it's probably going to be super ugly at first, so we'll play around with that. And I'm just going to see what that gets us. Yeah, we'll see. All right, there are a few comments here, I think. We'll create task screen recompose for every character you type in the project name text field. So let's take a look. Probably what will happen is, so when I type in the project name text field, I will be invalidating project name, which is read here. It's read to pass it into value. And the scope that that's read in is probably scrollable column, because I'm guessing scrollable column's not inline. Yeah. So the scrollable column will recompose, but so that means all of this will recompose. But then you got to ask yourself, like, you know, is that a big deal or not? Well, it turns out, so client dropdown field, in this case, actually, so clients is a list which isn't a stable type, but with the stable inference that that I'm working on, that would be determined to be a stable type. But either way, I mean, so this would end up getting recomposed. This would get recomposed because the value has changed. However, none of these would get recomposed because none of the parameters have changed. This would not recompose because it hasn't changed. And you know, this one probably would because, again, users isn't necessarily static. But so then we go in, we look at client dropdown. Client dropdown's empty, so that's just an empty function call. Obviously, it wouldn't be later, but inside this body, like we're probably decomposing this like list into other things, all of which are probably going to end up being stable types. And where were we? So you know, right now at least this doesn't really cost us anything. And then like let's go to avatar list. So this ends up looping through the users, but these are all stable types, so that wouldn't recompose. And let's see, these are all stable types, so that wouldn't recompose. And so I guess the you know, the reason I kind of went through that exercise is basically like, yes, so when I mutate project name, all of this will recompose. But that's nowhere near as expensive as the first composition because compose will skip calls to other composable functions if the parameters haven't changed. And in this case, if you just changed project name, in most cases, most of the other things that aren't related to project name aren't going to change. And so you'll end up with a very narrow kind of set of composables that end up recomposing, and it's probably just kind of like your userland code, but the underlying things, you know, like text and you know, text field and stuff like that, those are probably going to skip, and so it won't end up being all that expensive, if that makes sense. At least that's, you know, that's the hope or the design or whatever. So label here, I guess it does want us to give a label, project name. I wonder if because of the way we're doing this, then, you know, maybe we'll remove the label from the text field, and we'll just do this. Because it's kind of split out in the design. So let's just go ahead and do that. And then here we'll remove label as a required parameter, and then also remove it here. And yeah, okay. Let's see if that builds. So Shinigami asks, is flow row a replacement for flex row? Is it intended to be like the web's flexbox? I don't know. Do we still have flow row? I see. I remember talking about this. Is it intended to be like the web's flexbox? I mean, I wouldn't say that, but basically this is, I guess the idea here is that this is a row that kind of knows how to overflow, and basically it's laying things out until it runs out of space and then kind of plops them down like that. So that's what this is for, and I guess it's labeled as experimental at the time being. I think we're investigating more around these APIs before we want to label it as stable. Not sure. Sorry, I don't have more information there, Shinigami. Regarding suggested projects to work on, check this one out. All right, let's see what this is. Take a trip, Android presentation. Take a Trip is a travel agency that offers the best tours all over the world. With over 20 years in travel industry, we pride ourselves on the quality and reliability of our service. Okay, that's cool. Gives me color palette, typography. Got a cool walkthrough thing. Onboarding screen. Yeah, I mean, so this looks like a really cool design. It does give me, you know, some of the typography, but it doesn't actually like tell me on this given screen, you know, like I want to know kind of exactly the sizes to and colors and everything to assign to like full name, you know, and VNave Arma and like stuff like that, and like the spacing of this button and all that. You know, this isn't typically what designers would put in like a promotional, like showing off your design sort of thing, but it is typical if you're like giving that design to an engineer or something. And so I do wonder if there are, like someone told me that, you know, sometimes on like Dribbble or Behance or something, they'll include like the, you know, maybe a link to Figma or something. Like Figma is really great. They've got like a viewer that you can look at the design, and then you can, you know, you can like measure and, you know, pixels and stuff, like the distances between different elements, and look at all the typography of the things. So that would be the number one like best thing, is if I had like all of that spec'd out or not. But this is it is a cool design. It's something that we could look at. Yeah, clickable prototype. Yeah, right. You know, some of the, you know, prototypes things they have, you can go through each page and stuff. Hey Nicholas. Let's go. Nicholas asks, how will Compose work with the navigation component? I guess my question is how switching between screens will be handled. Might be a new question, but I'm interested. Yeah, I guess I'm not sure what more you want to know about this. You know, basically the like the current navigation sort of component, there's like a nav host composable, and whatever the current backstack entry, it'll kind of render that composable and not any of the others. And then there's like a mechanism to save the state of the screens on the backstack entry, so that when you go back, like it'll preserve scroll state and stuff like that. I'm not sure if that answers all your questions or not. Okay, so we've got let's see, we've got a you know, so here's the mock-up. Here's our beautiful page so far. So let's start making it a little bit prettier, and you know, kind of work with that. So I'm rendering 2 project names, I guess, because the drop down isn't set up yet. And then I'm not doing any of these radio chips. I'm not using that yet. So let's add that. So radio chips, we will have the selected value. Let's, okay, so category. Let's make a category here. Let's call it design. And then we'll have selected value here will be category on value change. Why isn't this? Oh, it's on selected change. Category equals it. And then values will be, let's just hard code some of these right now. Front end and back end. Sure. Okay, so that'll get us our bottom chip selection sort of thing. One of the things that I want to do is I want to add some padding here. So we'll say horizontal, let's call it 16 dp, 20 dp vertical. Right. And like yeah, shortcut for memory mutable state of would be good. Ooh, okay. How long have I been? It's getting a little bit late. It's 1:30. There's some other things I wanted to do today, just kind of like some weekend chores. So I think I'm gonna end the stream now. We've been streaming for about 2.5 hours. But I feel like we made some good progress. Excited about that. I think this is going to be a fun app to build like multiple screens and throw in some navigation. Maybe mock out some more data. Yeah, thanks JB Pratt. Glad you enjoyed it. Actually, so schedule related update is tomorrow. I'm not going to be able to stream tomorrow. I think what I'll try and do is I'll try and do the Monday stream on Tuesday, so that we can get some more work done on this app. So look out for that. And yeah, I think we'll call it a day. Hope all of you have a good rest of your weekend, and keep shooting over some designs that you'd like me to hit up next. I think if someone can find one that's like fully spec'd out, I think that'd be awesome. Or like even better if a designer is watching or something maybe, and they had a design that they were willing to share, that would be really cool as well. Anyway, have a good weekend, and thanks for tuning in. Cheers.